Hi. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me fine and see my screen. We'll be starting as soon as more people join in, so let's wait a few minutes for everyone. Well, there isn't a lot of people joining, so I don't know if we should wait a couple more minutes for everyone to join. Are more people joining? Noor, I don't know. Or should we get started? Well, if no more people join within the next 2 minutes, we'll start the today's lesson because we have a lot of material to go through and well, we need time to go through it. Well, let's get started. Can everyone see my screen and hear me fine? Good. So let's get started with today's third and last server development lesson. So we'll be continuing on what we started with Node.js and MongoDB. All right. So what we'll be seeing today is we'll be finishing up, setting up our API and setting up, with MongoDB and Mongoose. We'll see Mongoose schemas and schema types. We'll build up our models. We'll finish up creating our controllers and hooking up our React application to the API we're building. If we have enough time, we have also a bonus chapter, which is basically going to be hooking up MySQL with Node.js using the SQLize ORM library. I know you've been learning MySQL with Mr. Safedi, and Bell bonus chapter would be, well, putting that knowledge into practice using Node.js. Hopefully we'll have enough time for that. Otherwise, we'll see it maybe during coaching hours or something like that. We'll finish today's session with the kickoff of our end of courses project. So this is going to be a bit different from the both assignments we did so far. This is going to be a full-on project that will go through on the remaining 3 weeks in the program. So we won't have sessions actually next week and the weekend after that. We'll do more coaching though, as will be free during Saturday and Sunday for the next couple of weeks. I'll be taking more coaching these days. I'll also see with BTI if we can organize. Okay, can you hear me now? I seem to have been having issues with Zoom. I've been disconnected from this meeting. It seems I'm back, so can you hear me and see my screen fine? Okay, good. So what I was saying is, well, let's review what we've done so far. So we've created the Node.js project. We've created a few examples using Node.js. We've basically created some terminal modules. So basically, let's go to our examples. We've created some basic functions. We've explored promises as well as callbacks during this. So we've basically written a few functions to say hello. We've simulated promises using set timeout and callbacks as well. We've seen how we can use the file system. We've seen how we can basically write small files and read small files, but also how we can use Node.js streams to handle bigger files in an optimal manner. How we can basically divide them into chunks during reading or writing, and how we can set the chunk size for optimal streams to write files. We've seen how we can handle events using Node.js with the event emitter, how we can emit events, and how we can read these events with the on function. We've also seen how we can create cron jobs, basically programming a function to execute, like in this example, every second, or execute every day at midnight, or whatever we want for our cron job. So we've seen how we can set up that kind of functionality with Node.js. We've also seen how we can create an HTTP server using vanilla Node.js, using the HTTP default library that we find by default in Node.js, and using the create server function. Basically, we've created our own server in that manner on the 8080 ports. We've also written our own router function to redirect to different controllers we've written. And we've seen how that can be simplified by using the Express framework, which basically handles server creation, middlewares, and basically routing for us. So we installed Express. Is to use with Express. Handles basically console logging for us to see how when we're getting requests. We've seen the course library, which basically allows us to handle course issues, cross-origin resource sharing. We've seen Helmet as well, which adds security headers automatically to all our requests, so we don't have to bother with that. We've seen how we can configure routes. We've set up routes in here, just testing routes, just test routes basically. We've made a few. We've created our first controllers. We also saw how we can use sockets, which is very interesting because we've installed basically socket.io here. We created basically an IO server on top of our API, REST API server. We've seen how we can use it to basically write a chat using events, like we said, with the on keyword. So we've handled kind of a chatbot using switch cases, if you remember. Basically what to answer when we get hello and what we answer when we get how are you and stuff like that. We've also seen how that is done on the client side. Basically, we wrote a small index HTML that we've opened, and we've written all the logic in the script here, basically handling all socket connection and all of that. So we've seen how to use sockets, which is very important. And then, well, we looked at MongoDB. Basically, what we've done is that we created an account on MongoDB Atlas, which is a cloud service provider for MongoDB databases, which is free. So let's connect on that and we'll take a look at our database that we've created last week. Let it load. Well, here are our databases. We've created a database, we created a cluster here that we've set up. And we created a couple of databases on which we tested basically Mongo shell commands using the terminal. And we've seen how we can use the GUI as well. We've created a few games here, as you can see. And we stopped last week basically at connecting our Express server to MongoDB. Basically, what we've done is we created a file here called DB, where we're using Mongoose. We've set up an environment file, a .env, with the port, the MongoDB URL, the MongoDB database name, the MongoDB username, and the MongoDB password. Then from our DB file, we basically initiated the connection. We're loading these variables from process.env. And we've set up basically the DB URL using those variables. We've set up an option on Mongoose, basically a connection timeout, which means basically that we would stop trying to connect if the database doesn't answer for 10,000 milliseconds or 10 seconds. And we've written a function called connect to MongoDB, which basically creates a DB variable, which is the result of a mongoose.create connection that basically takes the DB URL we've built and the Mongo options. And we've set up an event to basically log on the console when we've successfully connected to the database. And another event to display when we get an error and can't connect to the database. And we're returning the DB. and we're exporting by default the connect to MongoDB function that we're then calling in Express, I believe. So in Express, you see that we're loading the connect to DB function here by requiring well, the DB file. And then when our server is open, when we're done opening our server, basically what we're doing is that we're loading MyDB using that function connect to DB. And we're setting it as a global variable, basically using global.db and giving it MyDB, which means basically from any file, we may call and use global.db, which will be useful to us in a second. So basically, that's what we've done so far. That's our progress. So next steps would be creating a model for our basically DB here, for our games DB. We'll be creating a game model to load this and read, well, these. So before we move on to that, do you guys have any questions regarding our progress so far? If anything came up while you were reviewing or anything like that. So do you have any questions before we go to the next step? Okay, so if everything so far is clear, let's move on with, well, our project. So what we'll see next are Mongoose schemas. So what are Mongoose schemas? So basically a Mongoose schema is an object that defines the shape of a document in a collection. So we've said that basically the thing with we're allowed to structure our documents as we want. And we've seen that basically when we're using the terminal, we can create whatever we want. We can create totally different documents and put them in the same collection. It's not like in MySQL when you need to have a table and a defined structure and you can push anything that is not in that structure. So MongoDB is different. But in real life, you still need to have kind of a structure to your database, even though it's not obligatory. So Mongoose actually handles that through schema. So basically, you would use a schema to give it data you might expect in a document inside a collection, inside a given collection. You give it types and default values and options that we will see more in detail. So basically, it would look a bit like the example on screen. We will define a new schema. For example, you say, let's say we have a blog collection. And in this blog collection, we have basically articles. So you would have the title for the article, the author, the body, which are all strings. You'd also have comments, which basically is going to be an array of objects, and every object having a body that is a string and a date that is a date. We'll have a date as well for the article, which is going to be of type date, and which is going to have a default value, which is going to be date.now, which means basically right now. We'll have a Boolean value that's called hidden, if we want to hide the article or not. And we're going to have metadata, for example, for votes and how many people favored it. So basically, that's how you would define a schema in Mongoose. So we've seen here two things. We see, for example, for date here, we have types and we have options like default, for example. So these are called schema types. So a schema type is basically a configuration object for every individual property in a schema. What type it should have, what values are valid for that property, what default value it may take, what getters and setters we might have, is it required, is it unique, stuff like that. So basically, here is a list of valid schema types and a list of valid schema type options. So as types go, we have the strings, the numbers, dates, buffers for files, booleans, mixed. Mixed is going to basically be objects or anything. You put mixed basically when the type changes. The object ID, which is going to be basically something you use for IDs mainly. Arrays, of course. Decimals, which are like numbers, but with more precision. Maps, which are basically objects, and schemas. Basically, you can have a schema inside a schema and stuff like that. So what are valid schema type options? So we have the required. When you want a field to be always there, so you put it in required. Default, which is going to allow you to give it a default value. Select, which means if you want it basically to appear or not by default when you then find that object. You'd have validate if you want to have a pattern, for example, and the validator directly in your database. Get and set are basically getters and setters. If you want to, when you're getting, you want to basically convert it or add something to it, setters as well. If you want to modify data when you're setting, aliases. So if you want to call that, you want to give an alias to a field, these are not very much used. Immutable, when you don't want it to be able to update that value, and transform, basically to transform the value. So most of the time, you're mostly going to use the required and the default. These are going to be the most used ones in terms of options. So let's go back to our VS Code and write a schema for our games. So as you can see here, basically we have mostly the name, the year, and the developers. So let's go back to our code. And what we'll do is that we'll go here and we'll add a folder. Let's close these. Okay. We add a folder called models, where we'll be defining basically our models here. So what we'll do here is that we'll go add games.model.js. And what we'll do here is that we'll go here, and basically what we'll do is we will, first of all, import Mongoose. Into this file. We'll get our connection. You remember here in Express, what we've done is that we're putting global.db. So let's go and have db equal global.db. And then we'll go have game schema equals new mongoose.schema, like we've seen in the example. All right. Then what we'll do is have this object, and we'll start by having what did we have here? The name, the year, and the developers. So let's write that here somewhere. Name, year, developers. That's right. So we have these three fields. So what we'll do is that we'll start with the name. We'll have it be of type string. We'll say this is required. And we'll also have the year and the developers. This is going to be a number. We'll say these are required, but we'll also add a few basically a few data that we might want to add. For example, we'll add the genre, which is going to be a type string. We'll have the, which is not going to be required. We can also have, for example, meta, which is going to be an object. Or what we might have as what we might want to use as well is maybe the mixed, if we wanted to be able to change, or basically stuff like that. Or we could have, you know, type. You could have it as meta. We could have it be like, or not even have the type. You could have it like this, and have the meta have it have what could we have it? We could have, I don't know, score, which can be of type number and have a default value of 0. And we could have likes, excuse me, of type number, default 0. Let's keep this at number. For example, we could have it be like that. Let's say this is our schema, right? And now that we've created a schema, what we need to do is basically we can add something that's really cool here, which are timestamps. So basically we've created the schema, right? And you can give it options. So schema takes a definitions and options. So this is our schema, but we can also add options here. And we're going to add timestamps true. Basically what that does is that it's going to add created at and updated at automatically. Mohammed Balawi asks about the ID, and that's really good question. Actually, I was expecting someone to ask that. So basically, when using Mongoose, we can either define an ID in the schema here, or you can not define it at all. And if you don't define it at all, by default, it's going to be an ID with an underscore and an object ID. Basically, that is going to be done by default. It always exists. It can't be removed per se. So you don't have to define it. You only define it if you want to change it, which basically you shouldn't anyway. You should leave it as is, as this is a UUID and it's quite secure. So you should leave it as is, to be honest. But yeah, you should only define it if you want to change it, Mohammed. Otherwise, just, you know, forget about it and MongoDB will handle it by its own. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to handle it. Okay? So now that we've done this, what we need to do is like we've got the DB here. What we need to do is we need to add this model to the DB. So we're going to go and do const game, which is going to be the db.model game. And we're going to give it the game schema. And we're going to export model.exports equals game. Okay. So now let's try. We have a few controllers that we've set up. We have the test controller, right? Let's try to see what we can do with it. So we have this say hello, and we have the get games. let's see if we can add some games. So we'll add a new controller. We'll add a new controller here called game.controller.js. And what we'll do is that we'll go here and we'll be importing our game model. Game equal require models games.model. And what we'll do here is, first of all, we'll go and have function or module.exports dot get all or get games equal, like we said, every controller should have a request and a response. And what we'll do is that basically we will since we have a model here, we have a few functions that we can now get from the model, which are injected by Mongoose, that will allow us basically to run functions that look a lot like the ones we use in the terminal with MongoDB. So let me show you how that looks like. So basically what we need to do is that we'll have game dot find, where we need find all, I don't know. So we know that we have this model. So we'll use dot find, and basically we want no queries. If you remember, we can have a query here. So what we'll do now is that we will basically be returning everything here. So let's go and have it like this. Let's make this asynchronous actually. And let's have here a try catch. And we'll try to basically have our games documents from game.find.exec. So we'll be executing this function. And of course, we'll need to have a wait here since it's a promise. And what we can do is that we can go and have res.status 200.json. We can have here status success and games documents. So let's have it like this. And otherwise, what we'll want to do is that we want to have res.status, have error.status, or if we don't have that error, this failure and error having to be error.message. .exec for what? Basically, exec is to execute it. Basically, to launch it. That's how Mongoose does things. So you don't launch exec to execute a query, basically. Like Tarek said, it's tanfidh. So that's how they do it. So yeah. Until you run exec, actually it won't execute. It's you need to execute the query first. So you need to execute it. That's done for every query you do. Whenever you do find or something like that, you need to exec. You need always end it with .exec. So let's try this, shall we? We have the controller, so get games. We have the try, the catch, everything is going fine. What we need to do now is you don't need to pass rec to find. Yeah, I mean, it could have it like this because I don't need the request. And here I don't need to pass anything because I want them all. I want everything. So I'm just passing an empty object. If I wanted to, for it, say, have a one with a specific title, I could have title here. So, you know. We will try something. We will try other stuff going forward. Let's try this simple example first. Let's go to routes and add another route, which we'll call games.routes.js. So we have our models, our controllers, and now we need our routes. Let's copy this here to go from here to go faster. So here we won't have the test controller. We'll have the games controller, and we'll be getting it here from games controller. And we'll be having only this one, and we'll be getting get games. Let's import it here. Let's get the games routes and add this one as well, games, and have it have games routes. So now we should be getting our routes here. Express loads our routes and we're using them here. So now /games should be executing our games controller. Let's try it. I don't know if you guys know of Postman, but we can use Postman to get requests or use directly our browser. I'll be showing you Postman, how to use it. So this is Postman. It's a tool that you can download to simulate HTTP requests. I'm sure many of you already know of it, but for those who don't, will be demonstrating that. But first, let's launch our server since we didn't launch it yet. What we'll do is that we'll go and have npm run dev to run it using no daemon. So here it says cannot read property model of undefined. Why is that? Okay, let's go back. It seems we have forgotten something. So db dot global db. We should be, what is the connect to db here? Global db. So everything should be fine, right? Let's take a look. We're setting global.db, so we should be having global.db here. I don't see the issue. 1 second. Maybe we'll change things up a bit. Maybe we won't be waiting till the server is open then. Yeah, it seems that's the issue. The issue is that we're waiting for it. So let's change things a bit. Let's export this like this. And let's go here in our Express and have global. Let's get rid of this here. And let's go up, up, up and have here, connect, have my DB here. and already set it up since the beginning. So we don't have to actually wait for the server to start, because it seems that's the issue. It seems because we're starting for the server to listen, this stays at undefined for a while, which is not good. So let's set it up directly and go. Let's try it out now. So now it works fine. Server is online on port 8080, and we're connected to our database. So let's try going to our localhost 8080. So we have nothing here, but if we go to games, oh, we got our data. That's great. So we'll be able to go here from our browser because it's a get route. So as you can see here, we're getting everything. Even the meta, because we gave it a default value. So we don't have the meta here. Refresh. We didn't have the meta. So we don't have the meta here, see? But since in our schema, we gave it a default, basically what happens is that when we call it, we still get meta because it has a default value. And we get everything. So the same thing, we could do the same thing with Postman by basically creating a new request here. I hope you can see fine. Zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. If we go here, we can choose which request we want. So we choose the get and go localhost 8080 games. Well, as you can see, we're getting what we need here. So does anyone have any questions regarding what we just did? So basically we can go a bit further. Since here we're using an express, if you remember, we've used this. So express.url encoded, that allows us to get URL encoded variables. So what we can see here, so for example, since we're using this middleware, if we go we didn't need to handle by ourselves the URL encoded parameters. So if we go here, for example, let's get the request back. We can also get here and have for example, URL params equals rec.params. And let's see if we launch this again. What you can see here is that, well, I forgot to log them. So let's add console.log, debug, get games controller, and we'll try logging the URL params here. We'll log them just so we see what we're getting. So if I launched again, as you will see, well, URL params are just an empty object. But if I go and, for example, have here title equal, I don't know, Zelda, well, you'll see now, okay, maybe we added it to DOM, title Zelda. Why am I not getting the URL params? Huh. Am I not doing it right? Yeah, I should be doing it right. Why am I not getting the params? Coded, we are using the URL encoded, right? Express, we're using express.url encoded. So we should be getting rec.params. So we have the query params here. Let's add another one actually. We can add them here. We cannot write them there. We can add another one. Year, for example, being 1994 or something like that. But the issue here is that I don't see them in my URL params, ironically. What am I doing wrong here? Games controller. Let's console.log the request maybe to see what we're missing or what we might be missing. Let's send it again. And well, let's see. Params. Oh, it needs to be in the query, not in the params. So maybe they changed it. I don't know. But let's go and get it from the query. So my bad. Let's switch this for query. And we should be good to go. Now we should be getting what we want. So yes, we're getting the title and everything here. So everything is fine. So what we can do now is that we can add something cool that we can add here. So if we're not sending anything, what does it show if we send nothing? If we send nothing, well, it should give us an empty object, right? So yes, it gives us an empty object. So what we'll do is that we'll go here and basically we'll give it the URL params, right? That's it. So now if we basically send nothing, we get everything. But if, for example, I go and add year 1997 and I send it, it gives me only games that came out in 1997. So that's a good way to add, for example, if I put here, if I put in the URL params, well, developers, Nintendo, well, it gives me, well, this. I can also have something interesting, which is going to be like this. For example, I can take other parameters, for example, being dot limit, for example. And I can have, like someone asked about, find, what else can we have? We can have the limit option. How to add it? Returned. What else can we add that might be interesting? We can add. Can you add what can we? I think we can give it options as well. If we give it here a limit of 5 of 1, does it work? I don't remember exactly where to put this. If I go here, no, that's not it. I think it's like this though. Yes, like this. So if I add that limit, and so someone asked earlier about dot exact, Doa, if I'm not mistaken. You asked about dot exec. So this is a time where we might need where my dot exec is, well, helpful, because what we can do is that we can get rid of this. And then we can add a test here to say, for example, if limit, then games query equal games query dot limit with the given limit from the query. And we can get rid of the await here. And then we can get games document equals await games query dot exec. That allows us basically to only execute the query when it's ready, and we can basically increase whatever we want with it here. So now if we go back here, if we send, basically we should be getting everything. So multiple, we should getting 1, 2, 3, 4 results. But if we add here limit equal to, what should happen is that, well, we should only be getting 2 here. All right. What is the issue? I think we need to give it here parse int. If I'm not mistaken, that should be the issue. Yes. So now we can give it a limit, or we can just not give it a limit, which allows us basically to tweak our request and basically get what we want, right? And we could have another one here, another another controller where we can get game document only, and we can have we can have something else. We can have get game by ID, and we can have here ID from rec.params, right? And then we can have only this. We don't need everything else. Game document would be await dot exec. Find, here we could use find by ID and give it basically the ID. Says game document. So this is a different route. So let's add another one here. We'd give one with the get with the I/ID. And we get here get game by ID. Let's try one. So let's get an ID from here. Though this should get us the Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. So let's try this out, shall we? Let's try /game / the ID. Success, but this gives us nothing. Why? Why does it not find us? Why? What's happening? Let's try it here. Let's go get game by ID. And oh, we forgot the parentheses on the exec. Sometimes it's stupid mistakes. There we go. So we should be able to get by ID now as well. Okay, let's finish adding our crude controllers. Let's add something else. Let's add a function to add new games. Let's add a new game. Let's add a create one. So we'll create a new function now called create game. And what we'll do is that we'll be getting, we should be getting game data from rec.body, if I'm not mistaken. And what we should do is that we should be having the game document game.create or we could have, actually, let's have this. We have the game document be our, let's have it a new game with the game data. And actually what we do is that we can then have game document dot save await dot save, and then we can return the game document here. Okay, so let's try this out. We'll add a new route. We'll call it post. We will have it a post be a post method now, not a get one. So we'll have here create game, right? And now we should be able to create a new game by using this URL and going to the body and have it be raw, and we want it to be a JSON, and let's give it a JSON. So what we'll do is that we'll give it a name. We'll call it, what should we call it? Let's call it Tetris. Let's put the year. If I'm not mistaken, it was out in 1986. I'm not sure. I can't remember which year Tetris was out. So let's see. Wikipedia should tell me more. So Wikipedia 84. So yeah, I was mistaken a bit. So 84, and it was made by, well, let's say it was by Sega. Let's say it was by, actually no. Developers was EA Mobile and Sega. Okay, let's put Sega. So here it was made in 1984. And developers, let's say it was made by Sega. So we don't need to put anything else. That should be enough. So now if we send it, it says, hey, it's a success. And you remember we put in timestamps here. We set timestamps true, and we said it would create that and updated that automatically. Well, that's what it did here. So it says, hey, we created it at 13th of November at 11 a.m. GMT. So basically, there is no time zone here. If you want, you need to you could convert it to a time zone to get the real time and Gaza time, for example. So that creates it for us, as you see here. As you can see here, we can also increase this, make it better. So here we can go to our model, and what we do is that if, for example, we can add here, we say if game data, if what we can do is that, I'm sorry, we go here, we do array dot is array, and we give it game data to see if it's an array. This is actually a really good thing to do. We'd actually change the name to create games here, which is really nice as well. So array is array. So if it's an array, well, we'll do something. Else, well, we'll do what we've done so far. Or no, it's like, actually, what we'll do is like, if it's not an array, I'm sorry. If it's not an array, we'll put this let here. If it's not an array, game data equals game data. We'll put it in an array. And you'll see why in a second. So if it's not an array, I want to put it in an array. I want it to be an array. Why? Because I'll actually go and do a for loop game of game data. And what I'll do is that I'll push this here. And actually, and because I don't want to do this anymore, actually, no, I'm going because now I want to do game const results, and I want to have game dot insert many. If I'm not mistaken, that should be this should be it. Insert many or create many. I believe it's insert many. And what I can do is that I can insert many and have it get all of my game data. Of course, we'll need to. Well, that's it. That's about it. We'll need to await it. I'm sorry. And I think we still need to use .exec. And here we can have games, I'm sorry, and have the results. If I'm not mistaken, this should work. We should come here and have create games though, since we added an S to it. So now what it does is if we send it a single, our case should still work, which means if I send, I don't know, if I send Tetris made by EA Mobile, well, we have a failure here, and I don't know why. Do we have an error here? Yes. So we have an error, but we don't have an error message, which is weird. So let's console.error. Error. Let's try it again. Just so we can see what the error is. So it's failing. Let's see. Exec is not a function. So yeah, it doesn't want exec. Exec is only for getting, it seems. So I wasn't sure. But exec is only for reading. So yeah, it's a mistake on my part. So now we have a success and we see games that we created here. Well, that's about it for adding. So the advantage of doing this and changing this the way I did, so let's close this and this. The advantage of doing this the way I did is that now we may also do it like this. We can add basically whatever we want. We can add another one here called, I don't know, Pac-Man, made by, I think it was made by Capcom in 1998. And I can add another one, which is Street Fighter 2, which is made by Capcom as well in 1992. And the advantage of doing this is now that if we send multiple games, well, it creates all of them at once. So that's better for our API. If we go now to our DB, you'll see that we have a lot more games. If we go and refresh, we'll see that now we have 11 games. Well, we have an issue now is that when we wanted to test, we've created multiple Tetris games. So now we'll add a few more. We've created, if you remember CRUD, we had create, read, update, and delete. We've added the read controller, the create controller. We still need to create the update controller and the delete controller. So let's add update controllers. So we'll need to, well, we'll copy this actually. We'll copy the create games. Here we'll do update game. And what we'll do is that we'll do update. We'll have find update game. Okay, request. So we get the new game data. We get the, actually, we don't need the array anymore. We get const game updated game data. We'll get the request.body and actually update game by ID. We'll do the easy one first, update game by ID. We'll get actually the ID from the request params. And what we'll do is that we'll do find by ID and update, if I'm not mistaken. Find by ID and update, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's, if I forgot, like if it's either find by ID and update or find by ID and modify. I'm not sure, but let's try it out. So find by ID and update. So what we'll do here is that find by the update, we need to give it the ID first and the updated game data. And we'll get the game data, which is updated. We need the game data, and we'll basically have game. Or actually, let's call it game, not game data. And we can get rid of this. Otherwise, it fails. So let's add this route. We'll actually have this here. It's going to be a put route. We'll give it an ID, and it's going to be update game by ID. And now let's take an ID that we want to update. Let's say we want to get this one. Let's get this ID. And what we'll do to try is that we'll go have put slash games slash this. And what I want to do is that I want my body now. I don't want it to be an array. What I want to do is that I want to have only the name to update. I want to update it. I want to update actually the name and the year. And I want to have it, for example, Call of Duty Mobile. And I want to put the year, I don't know, 2019, I think. I don't care. So let's send. We have a success. Well, it should have been updated, but I see the data remains the same. Did it update? Let's take a look. It did update. Why is it not sending me the one that is updated though? Find another ID that update doesn't. It doesn't return the one that is updated. Well, that's not cool. That is not cool at all. Why? Hmm. 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 Well, let's say, okay. How can I believe that there must be a way. I'm gonna look it up. Let's look it up. I'm sure there is an option we're missing. Find by ID and update. Mongoose return updated data. Sure, there is someone not no. Find ID and find it no. Not returning, they're going to call back. No. And find one has changed to false. Oh, okay. New true. Okay, so we need to add this new true, which is no longer by default, unfortunately. So we need to go here and add it as an option here. We add new being true. Otherwise, it doesn't send the new one. So now if we execute it again, why meta is a separated object in DB? So it's a good question. It's because in the schema here, we defined it as its own object. Look, so it's an object with a score and likes and everything. So we declared it as an object in the document. So it's an object within an object. It's not really separated. It's just inside it, but well, its type is another object. I don't know if that's clear, Muhammad. So it's a nested object. Okay. So now if we execute this, we should be getting the new one. Let's say we put, I don't know. Let's update only the year. Let's put it to 2018. We should be getting 2018. So yeah, now we get the new one when we update. We can also have another way to update instead of game by date by ID. We can have basically we can have update many, which is basically we give it a query basically, and it changes everything within that query. So let's okay. We can have update game by ID. We can have update. I think we should keep it at this. So let's actually add another one here. We've done the create, the read, the update. So we're missing the delete, right? So let's actually create the delete. I don't have time to explore very obscure scenarios. Let's create the delete first, and then we can see how we can add additional stuff. So let's add delete game by ID this time. And what we'll do is that basically it works the same. We don't need this. And basically what we'll do is that we'll find by ID and delete, if I am not mistaken. Let's find by ID and delete. And we just give it the ID, no need for anything. And well, success and success. We don't need to return anything actually. And this should be delete, not delta. Okay, this should be fine. And let's go to our routes and add another one. And it should have it be delete and delete game ID. This is our new route. And we'll come here and not here actually. Let's close this. We'll open Postman and we'll give it. Let's choose which one. Let's see which one we want to delete. I want to delete this one. Let's take actually the ID. As you can see here, we now have 11 documents. So when after deleting, we should have 10. So let's go and, well, get rid of the body. Not here, let's actually get rid of this body. Let's give delete none. And we'll have it become a delete request and send it. We should need to put the new ID and we'll send it. And it's a success. And we should have one less Tetris. So we have now 10, so it worked. The document was deleted. And as you can see, we no longer have the second Tetris here. So is that clear, everyone, up to now? So we created controllers for getting games, getting a single game, creating games, updating a game, and deleting a game. Is that clear up to now? Good. Good. Okay. Of course, you can add multiple things here. You can basically create whatever controllers you want. You can get controllers for deleting many, updating many, transforming data, counting documents. So there are a lot of functions that you can use. Actually, I'll actually open up the documentation so you can see basically what kind of functions we can run on a model. Easy after creating the DB. Actually, you don't even need to create a DB. I'll show you, Muhammad, something that's really interesting. Let's say we didn't create a DB, okay? But basically, before we go into that, let me show you. So this is in the documentation as a list of all functions we can run on a model. So we see we've used create, we've used delete, find by ID and delete, and find by ID and update. But there are a lot of functions you can use. Find one, you can check if it exists. You can get delete, you can get counts, you can add indexes, you can aggregate. There are lots of stuff that you can do. And I suggest that you read the documentation for more advanced cases. But most of the time, all you will need to do is basically basic crude operations, which we have done right now. So basically, that covers, I guess, 99% of your use cases anyway. So to answer what you said, Mohammed, it's easy after creating the DB. The thing with MongoDB is that you don't need to create a DB. It's not like MySQL, actually. So let's go here. We have two databases, right? We have the my first DB and my second DB, right? We only have those two. Well, if I go into Mongoose here, and let's go to my UMF, and we use a DB that doesn't exist. My third DB. We agree that my third DB doesn't exist, right? So we don't have my third DB. There is no such thing as my third DB. And if I do that, I can actually, well, let's close the server, launch it back up. And you see it says, hey, connected to database my third DB as DB user. Even though the database doesn't exist, it still works. And if I go and actually create games. So if I go post and I go games and I go here in the body and I put a JSON up and I go basically the game saying name, the legend of, you guys know by now, I love the Legend of Zelda. So Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. In 1998, made by Nintendo. You'll see that, oh, I have a success, even though we didn't create the DB. Well, if we go here and refresh, you'll see that my third DB was created on its own. And if I go to open it, I see there is a games collection in it. And if I look into it, I'll see the game I just added. So as you can see, Muhammad, actually, with MongoDB, since it's not like MySQL, it's not a relational database. You don't need to have a structure. You don't need to have anything. Basically, all you need to do is a MongoDB server. Once you set up the server, and that's really easy to do with MongoDB Atlas, as we've seen last week, you don't need to do much else. We just worked with no existing DB. I mean, what more can we do? It's like if we get it works, everything works. Is that understood, Muhammad? It's actually, yeah, in many ways, it actually is easier because you don't have to have tables with setup columns. You don't need to set up foreign keys, primary keys, relation between tables. All of that stuff, you don't need to use it. Basically, all you need to do is store your data and get your data. That's it. It's way less organized, but it's way faster to get started with. It's way more flexible. So it actually depends on your project. Let's say you're working with a client on something that is very, very specific, very organized, then yeah, you should use SQL and relational databases. I don't know. You should use MySQL, MariaDB, PostgreSQL, I don't know, whatever database, relational database you want, because it's more organized. Because you always know, basically, every table, what it has and what it doesn't have. With MongoDB, you can get started way faster. It's way more flexible. But yeah, it's way less organized and set in stone, like relational databases can be. Good thing also with non-relational databases, with no SQL databases, is that you can actually change schema mid-project. So see here, when it started working, I could go here and change the schema on the fly. I could come here and change my schema. Come here, change my schema, change name and call it title, for example. Hey, no more name, only titles. And I can go and add a new one. I can go in you can go to post, and hey, I can go and create another one. Title, let's say Ocarina of Time, 97. And it would still work. And I would have two documents with different schemas in the same collection. So yeah, Mohammed, there are a lot of advantages to NoSQL databases. It's like you couldn't do this with a relational database. You can't have two documents, or in SQL's case, two rows with different columns. That's not possible in SQL. So everything
needs. What is the benefit?
The benefit is flexibility. I mean, depends on your project, but sometimes when you're working with a client, they don't always know how their data is going to look at the end of the project. I give you an example, okay? Let's say you're working on a project for health, for e-health. At the end, at the start of the project, you don't know how patient information is going to be structured. Why? Because certain doctors will structure patient information differently from other doctors. If you go to an ophthalmologist, if you go to an eyes doctor, basically, the data that the eye doctor will input is going to be structured differently than a radiologist or a cardiologist, which is a heart doctor. So every doctor has different information they need to input. So you can do it in two ways. Either you have a relational structured database, but you need to have different tables for every doctor specialty, and you need to know all of them ahead of time, or you use a non-relational database, which offers flexibility, which doesn't have a defined structure at the start, and that allows you to handle in a single collection all structures, no matter the doctor, and have it change from doctor to doctor with no problems, even though you don't know from the start how the doctors need to input their information. So that's the benefit. That's the benefit of it, Hussein. I think Hussein asked the question, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, I mean, you guys are, the client will be counting on you to make technical choices. So you need to sit down with yourself and ask yourself questions. When it comes to data, you need to ask yourself, do I know enough? And does my client know enough about the project to have a defined structure for the data day one? Or do we not have that information? You need to ask yourself questions about what information you have, what you don't, and what it means for what type of database you choose. And that's why we're teaching you both MongoDB and MySQL, because you might need to use the one or the other. Is that clear? I'm very happy it's useful to you. So I think before we continue this, we are going to take a 15 minutes break. I see Tarek is is tired. So let's take 15 minutes. Then we'll come back. We'll open up our React project that what we created a few weeks ago, and we'll hook up our APIs to React. Okay? Okay. So let's get back here, and we'll create another slide. Let's take a 15 minutes break. Good. See you guys back here in 15 minutes, basically at what at 53 at 1 p.m. 53 minutes. So see you guys in a bit. Try not to be too late because we still have a lot of things to see. Hello again. Is everyone back? Can everyone hear me and see my screen fine? Okay, it seems a few haven't come back yet. We'll wait a minute for them, 1 minute, and we'll start. Well, let's get back into it. So we just created our controllers and our routes for handling games, right? So what we're going to do now is hook it up into our React app that we built a few weeks ago. So what we'll do now is basically go into GitHub first, because I need to clone the project. Okay, React.js course. Let's go to React.js and let's copy it. Copy that link because we want to clone it. What I'm going to do as well is maybe switch back to our original database. So my first DB, we're going to switch back to that. So going to my first DB. Okay. And what we'll do is that we will basically clone. We split our terminal. Tech. And let's clone the React project. Okay. I hope everyone can see my screen fine. Muhammad, if you could mute, please, that would be great. Thank you. Okay, so let's go to the React project. No, it's no problem, Muhammad. It's fine. And we'll install. And we will start it. And let's take a look first. What do we have in the package.json? Okay, we'll start. So npm install, and then we will start our React project. We'll also restart our node server, npm run dev. So that's our server is back up and it's connected to our database. It connected fine. Let's go back to, well, we won't be needing Postman anymore since we'll be connecting directly to our front end. And what we will do is like, let's close all of this. I hate it when I have multiple tabs open. We'll add a folder to our workspace because I want to see both the front end and the back end open. So we'll open the React project as another project in our workspace. So we now have both projects here. the Node project as well as the React project. So there we go. Starting the development server. Okay, don't open it here, please. Okay, and let's go and have our, let's close this, This is our database. And let's open the 3000. And we have games here. If you remember, we're loading them from a distant API. Let's go to our React project. If I'm not mistaken, we should have in our API here, services and games. We should have basically the swappy dev API films, and we don't like that. So what we will do is that we'll go to the configuration here. We'll get rid of this, and what we'll do is that we will have my API and URL. If you remember correctly, we're opening it on the localhost 8080. And basically what we'll do now is that we will also export const my API games endpoint, which is basically my API URL and /games. I'm just going to add those to the configuration. Mohammed, what I'll do now is that I'll plug our API that we just developed into the React project we built a few weeks ago. We've tried our APIs using Postman, right? Now we're just gonna call it with Axios or Fetch or whatever, and we're gonna use Fetch or Axios, or I don't know. And we will basically use it to...
You mean integrate front end and back end?
Exactly. Totally. That's exactly what I mean.
Very good. That's what I need.
That's what you need. I mean, that should be simple at this point. We've created the API and we created the front end. Now they just need to make them talk. That's the easy part.
It's the first project to integrate between them.
I know, and we're going to do that together right now. So follow along. That's exactly what we're going to do. So our service will start by get all. And what we'll do is that we will, first of all, we will do it simply, okay? We will start simple. And what we'll do is that the URL is going to be basically, let's import our games endpoint from config, and we'll import here my games endpoint, which is, if you remember, going to be our address, which is basically going to be whatever we used with Postman already. So no issues whatsoever. That's exactly what we did with Postman. So now we're going to have my games endpoint as the URL. No need to add anything. Our URL is going to be, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it ready. And we're going to have my games endpoint here, no changes. And we're going to fetch from that URL, which should hit into my games here. And you see it did, so we're getting 200. I'm guessing though the display is not going to be good. Yeah, the display is not going to be good because we're not getting the data correctly. Where are we calling it already? We're gonna, okay. Here, what we're doing in our my games list, if you remember, we're using the service. So basically we have services here with games, with get all, and then we went to pages, and we have this page with the list, which is the page I'm on right now, where we should have a list, okay? And basically what happens here is that, let's get rid of this. We're getting the JSON, everything is fine, but then we're doing it wrong. What we're doing is that we should get here, we should getting the ID by itself and the rest of the game, and ID should be the ID, and otherwise we just should spread it. Okay. Let's see. So it seems we have an issue here. Okay. Cannot read property lengths of undefined. My games list 17. So here results JSON that results. Okay, well, we didn't call it results, we called it games here. If you remember, actually, let's go back. If we go and have localhost 8080/games, you will notice that we have games here. Whereas in the other API, we had results. So I need to change that. So let's get back here. So basically what we're doing, we're using the fetch API. We're not using Axios. We're using the built-in browser API. So we don't have to call another library like Axios, but we could add Axios, no problem there. And what we're doing is that basically we have all of this, and actually we could even get it simpler, make it more simple. We could even make it more simple by adding the JSON response there, but we could have what games correctly. So there we go. We're loading our games from the database. We could make this a bit cleaner by getting all of this in basically the get all. Let's rewrite our get all to make it maybe a little bit cleaner. And what we'll do is that we'll return a new promise. Maybe it's going to be an asynchronous function. And what we'll do is that we'll go and have a try catch. And well, we'll do this. We'll have response equals the weight of the fetch. Here we're going to have promise dot reject error, return promise dot reject error. What we'll have as well, we'll take all this logic and put it there actually. Okay. We'll take this here. We'll take and we'll return JSON.games. Return JSON.games. Okay, so now basically all I want to do is clear this. So we'll have games here, and we can get rid of this, and we can have this directly here like this. So it should still work. Okay. I need to delete the old one. All good. So if we refresh, you'll see that we're loading all the games in our database. So that's for reading. We can also, of course, add a few things here. We can add here parameters. Okay, and what I can do is that basically I can have the parameters be basically an empty object by default. And what I'll do is that we can then have URL params equal object dot entries of params dot map, and we'll be mapping. We did this in our JavaScript chapters, if you remember. When we started together, we did this when we wanted to encode in the URL. So we're going to go key and value of parameters. We'll take the key and value of every entry. And what we'll do is that we will return key equal value. Okay. Params, which should return to us all of this. So we'll have let URL here, and then we'll go and have if URL params dot length. If we have many URL params, then we'll have URL equal basically our old URL, and here we'll have URL params one join, and we'll join them with this character so we have them in the URL being displayed correctly. Okay, and we'll give params here. So now what we can do is that you remember in our backend here, in our controller, we took into account when getting, we took into account URL params, like the limit, the name, etc. So now we can do just that. We can have, if we want, we could come here and get all and give it parameters. Let's say we want limit 3. Now, if we go back here, we should have only 3 games loading. If you want only games coming out in 1997, we can go and have the year being 1997. And basically, well, we'll get the result of that query. If I want it by name, I can have name, Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. Well, seems it's not working. Why? My first DB. So name. Why doesn't it like the name? Oh, because it's going to be okay. Okay. Well, you get my point. There is a function we've written. If we remember correctly, we already written a function like that in our JavaScript lessons anyway. So that's about it. So now we've hooked up the read. We are able to read. Like I said, let's get back here and get rid of the options here. So basically, this has a problem. This makes problems because it has spaces in them. This doesn't like spaces, so we'd need to sanitize it before we send it, basically. But I don't think we have enough time, so maybe let's not do that and go forward with the other implementations of our services. So we created our get all service here, which basically what it does, if you go to the network here, guys, especially Hussein, I think you're especially interested, you'll see what it does is basically it sends requests like we did so far. And basically we're sending a request here with a method get, and we're just getting the response basically in a JSON format, like we're doing in Postman. So basically, fetch or Axios will replace Postman in this context. So what we'll do here now is that we already have this form to add a new game. So let's change it up. Let's change it up so it adds actually to our database instead of adding only here, because now if we add a game, if we add a game here, it's a bit a new game. Well, it adds the game, but if I refresh my page, well, the game has disappeared. So we need to add it to our database. So let's actually use our create games controller to handle that. So let's add a new service here. We had get all. And now we will have create. Okay, we'll have here data. And what we'll do is that well, we don't need this, and we don't need actually params. So what we'll do is that the URL is going to be the same actually. All we need to do is that we'll need to use fetch with the post method. Excuse me. Oh. So post. So what we'll do now is that we will add here. Sorry, I will add a bunch of options after our URL. And what we'll do here is we'll add the method, which is going to be a post method. We'll add headers if we want. And what that header is going to be, we'll add the content type, because we want the server to know we're sending a JSON. So we're sending a JSON. And we want to send it a body, which is going to be a JSON.stringify of the data we want to send. Okay. So basically, that's about it. So basically, we're going to get a response. I don't remember what where we put it, create games. So we return it in games. So here we go. So we should get it in games. Here, basically, you create games. This should be 201 because it's creation. This should be 201 as well. This should be 201 as well. Okay. Why didn't use Axios or fetch best way in this case? Tarek says, in many ways, Axios is more practical, but it is not really needed. And I didn't use Axios to not import an additional library into my project. Like we talked about previously, every library you add is going to add up to your final bundle, which in basically front-end applications means basically a slower loading for your clients, because they need to load all these libraries. And I don't need this to happen because fetch already exists in their browser, which means if I use fetch, I don't need to add a library to my bundle because it is in the browser, in their browser. So it's a library they don't need to download basically. But you could use Axios if it's more convenient to you. I just use fetch because most of you are already used to using Axios, one, and two, because, well, fetch does the job basically without needing to add another library.
Without Axios, I think that's better to work with native code.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted you to see how the native implemented library works, let's say. So that's why I'm using fetch. But yeah, you could use Axios in this context if you want. So that's it. That's all we need to do here. and it will create the game. And if I'm not mistaken, it should return it in games. Okay. So, okay, JSON.games. So that's it. Let's see here. Where are we adding the game? So we have a button here called Submit New Game that I'm going to search. Submit New Game to see where we are actually. So the game, we're in the game form. So here it is. Actually, we have a component, if I'm not mistaken, in our project that is called game form, where we're adding new games. And we have here handle submit. All right, so we're going to change our handle submit. What our handle submit used to do is that it used to take the data from the form data, make an object, and then, well, add it to the props on submit with the game data. So we're going to modify that. And what we're going to do is that we are going to add, we're going to import from create from our services. We're going to go to services and games. And we should be getting create now. Sorry. So now, instead of directly putting this, what we're going to do is we're going to make this asynchronous. We're going to put a try catch. So we catch errors. Console.error, error. Just so we catch our error. And what we'll do is that we'll take everything. We'll put it on the try. And what we'll do now is that we will take the game object. We will not be using the ID anymore because MongoDB handles it for us. And what we'll do now is .state.form data, and we have the name, we have the genre, the year, the developer. And what we'll do now is that we will basically created games equal await well, the create that we added from here. And we'll need to give it data, so we'll give it the game object. And that should give us basically the list of created games. So I will add the, well, I'll just need, this is going to be an array. So what I'll do is that I will spread the created games here. I mean, that's kind of it. Okay. All I need to do is basically, okay, let's check my new, maybe it's like my new game, and it's going to be ID created games.id, and the rest of my created games, like it's gonna be the first one because I'm creating only one here. And then we're going to be adding, well, my new game here, because we have the possibility to create many, so that's the issue, that's the thing. So we're going to add my new game, we're going to put the ID and the rest of the properties there. And well, now it should work. All I needed to do is that. So let's go here, let's refresh and try it. So what should we add? Let's add basically, what should we add? We should, like, let's keep the network open so we see what's happening here. What should we add? Let's add, what game should we add? Okay, PUBG, okay. Let's add PUBG. Genre, it's a first-person shooter, I think. I'm not very familiar with PUBG. First, let's say just an FPS. It came out in 2017. I'm not sure. PUBG was made in 2017. I was actually right. 2017, and the developer, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be well, Brendan Green. So let's Brendan Green, and let's see if that works. Submit a new game. Oh, we got an error. We got a failure, guys. Why did we get a failure here? Where did it fail? What did we send? What did we send here? So we sent developer, genre, name, and year. Oh, because the year was actually a string, I think. So let's try it again. And the year should be parsed. So let's parse the year. Okay, we have this rewritten, FPS 2017, and Brendan Green. And let's take a look. Let's send it again. Oh, we have 500 again. Well, why? The name, the genre, the developer, everything should be fine. Let's actually come here. Let's go to our controller and debug this, shall we? So here in create games, we can come here and have the console.log.error, just so we can see what's happening in our console here. So let's send it back, actually. Let's send it again and see what's the issue. So the game validation failed because of our schema. And basically, okay, it's my bad. It's because of the example I made for Muhammad earlier. So for Muhammad earlier, we changed the name to title here, if you remember, and we put it as required. So that's the issue. So we will change it back to name, actually. So yeah, I forgot to get rid of that change earlier. If you remember, just before the break, I just wanted to show you guys that we could have mixed schemas inside a single collection. So let's change that back. And that should work. Okay, let's try it again. And okay, it still doesn't work. What the hell? What's your issue now? Developers is required. They send developers. What's the issue? Is it not written? Oh, developers. Okay. So basically in our front end, we haven't been sending it the way it is wanted. Developers, game data developer. It wants developers, and in the list, actually in the list as well, I think we should game cards. We should change it up and have utility, and we should have developers. Okay, because we're using it with an S. So that's my bad. Let's try again. PUBG, FPS 2017, and Brendan Green. And this should work this time. Okay, it worked. It worked, definitely worked. And we should see PUBG here. PUBG was added successfully. And if we refresh the page, PUBG should still be here. So yeah, PUBG is still here. So we added the create here, which is cool. So let's create another new game. I don't know. Mario, yeah. Super Mario Bros. And have it be here. Yeah, genre is a platformer. And 1989. And the developer is Nintendo. And we should give it again. It should be added here. And if we refresh, it should still be here. So that's definitely being added to our database. As you can see, we have 12 documents now, and Mario and PUBG are here. So that works fine. Let's go actually and add a delete button to it. So let's go to where we have the add to cart button. And what we'll do is that we'll add another button actually. On click, we'll add handle delete here. And we'll add another button with on click handle delete with the game data dot id, and we'll need to pass it a function with the handle delete. So where are we calling this? We're calling it in the game cards. So we need to add the and handle to cart, and we need to add another function here called handle game delete with the ID, and we should give it here handle game delete. And now we'll need to write a service basically for it. So let's go to our services and add another service function that will call delete. What it needs an ID, so we're deleting by ID. What is the issue here? Delete. Oh, okay. Delete by ID. And we'll give it an ID here. And basically what we'll need is that we'll need to put this like this, and we'll give it /ID. So we don't need these. All we need is basically have the method be delete. That's it. Dot status. And that should be it. So let's try it out. Let's import it here. Let's import delete by ID from services. Okay. And here, what we'll do is that this will be an asynchronous function. And what we'll do is that we'll try and we'll catch delete by ID. The ID will have it await. And what we'll do is that otherwise we'll also put error, and header getting delete. Well, we've given it, so it should be working fine. Okay, it seems here with in the utility we put remove from cart. So let's actually change this. We'll call it delete. So now we have a delete button. So let's try it out. We have multiple. Let's try and delete PUBG. Okay, so we're not handling the delete directly from, but if we refresh the page, we'll see that PUBG no longer exists. We have multiple Tetris games, so let's delete those. We'll need to implement, as you see, it's working, but we need to implement when we click it, we want it to directly be deleted from the list. So game cards, handle add to cart. We need to dispatch, we need to add a function here to our reducer, actually. Where is it? Where is it? We have our redux reducers, and with games, we have set games and add to cart, remove from cart. Let's actually add another case that we'll call remove game, remove game. And what we'll do is that we'll want to have the games be, well, state dot games dot filter, and we want to filter it where we want basically the game, and we want the game dot ID to be different from the payload. So basically we'll be deleting anything, we'll be keeping anything that doesn't have the ID we want to delete, and we remove anything with the ID we want to delete. We'll put the ID in the action payload here. So we go back to game cards, and what we'll do is that we'll, when that's done, we'll dispatch, what did we call it in the reducer? Remove game. Remove game, and the payload is going to be the ID like we said. So let's try this and see if it works. Let's delete Call of, okay, let's refresh to be sure everything's fine. And let's delete Call of Duty Mobile. And there we go. It has disappeared. Let's delete Pac-Man, let's delete Tetris. And hey, if we refresh, everything's fine. So there we go. All that remains is the update. So maybe what we'll do is that what do we do? Okay, what do we do? What do we do is that we'll go in the model. What do we have? We have the score. And well, we'll add something else. We'll add here. Well, I don't want to give it that. I want to give it okay, well, I'll do it like this. So we'll give it a score. We'll add a voting system. So let's go and go to game cards, utility, and add another button. Handle score. And give it, so it's easier because we don't have a lot of time remaining. We'll give it top score. And basically what that does is it's going to handle score, and it's going to give handle score. Let's give it a 10 out of 10. Okay. And what we'll do now is that we'll go to services. We'll create something else. We'll basically copy we'll copy the create. What we'll do is that we will copy the here and we'll call it update, and the URL is going to be the same as here. So we're going to actually do this like that and have it be the ID, and the rest we're going to call it data. And then here we're going to copy this stack, update, and then we're going to put it at put, because it's the update, the ID, the URL, and the data. We're going to stringify the data that we're sending. And let's return. What does it return? If we go back to our controller, the update game by ID returns a single game. So if we go back to our service, that should reflect that. Let's go back to our services and return the game that has been updated. So there we go with the service. Now let's go back here with the game cards. We've added here handle score. And what we'll do is that we'll add another function called handle score. And we'll call here the update. And actually, we should call it update by ID. It may be clearer. Let's call it update by ID. and go back to our game cards, and we should have the update by ID. And what we'll do now is, well, we will handle game top score, and what we see is we give it the score, but we also should give it the game ID, right? The ID and the score. Handle game score, and it takes the ID and the score. And what we'll do is that we will basically, we don't need this anymore. And what we'll do is that we will call the service update by ID, and we'll update by ID. And what we'll do is that we'll give it services, we get the ID and the data. So we give it the ID and we give it meta and score being the score, or score being, excuse me, being the score here. I mean, that's how we called it, I guess, in our model. So meta score, which is a number. So now if I press the button here, it's like, let's go back to our React project. So now I should give this actually here. Now, if I go in my card and press the button, top score, it should, well, update my game to have a score of 10. Okay? So let's try this. So let's go to Skyrim and try to give it a top score. We'll take a look at the network here to see if everything is working fine. So top score. So that's working fine. As you can see, we have the likes and the score and everything. So if we go now, as you can see here, we give it to Skyrim. So let's go to Skyrim. You'll see Skyrim has no meta. But if we refresh here, you'll see that actually now it has a meta and it has a score of 10. So we're successfully updating, right? So that's how you would use update, basically. That's it. We've successfully added basically the API to our front end. So do you guys have any questions regarding what we just did? Does anyone have any questions regarding that? It seems Hussein is no longer with us. I mean, he's the one who was the most interested with plugging the API to the front end, but he seems to have left the course meeting. So we could, Muhammad, but why should we? Why should we re-render the whole app and reload the whole location while we're on React, and React updates according to the state? So all we need to do is update the state and it will reload that. Why would we refresh the whole page, reload everything? That's a pain. I mean, that's way more user-friendly, I believe. It's like, I delete and it deletes. Otherwise, if I use window.location.reload, every time I press delete, it's going to refresh the page again. And that's not very user-friendly, is it? That's not optimal. I mean, we're using React, and well, React does this really well. So why not take advantage? Don't you agree? Exactly. So, well, let's update our state and that's it. Why not? Why not? So that's about it, guys. That's about it for our integration. We have 15 minutes left, so I don't think we'll be going through Sequelize, unfortunately. I'll be sending you the documentation for it, and if those interested, please, well, 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 let's have a vote, shall we? For the remainder of the session, we still have like 15 minutes left. Would you rather we integrate, we try to quickly integrate MySQL, or would you like to see how we can deploy our Node.js app online? Which would you be more interested in? Deployment of a Node.js API or adding MySQL? It seems deployment is winning. Well, it seems I've been disconnected from the session. Can you confirm you guys hear me and see my screen fine, please? Okay. So as I was saying, Tarek, we can actually, it's going to be complicated for me today because I have other work-related stuff.
Noor? Noor?
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Finally.
finally.
I don't know what Zoom is doing, but it's kicking me out. No audio. I don't know. I restarted Zoom and it seems to be working now. So please give me a few more minutes so we can quickly go through deployment. I try to go as fast as I can. Basically, we'll be using a free hosting service for Node.js called Heroku. Heroku is a cloud application platform for a few supported languages. You can use it for Node.js, you can use it for Ruby. I don't know if you see my screen fine, but if you do, you should be seeing the landing page for Heroku with the supported languages. So Node.js, Ruby, Java, PHP, Python, Go, Scala, and Clojure. What interests us today is going to be Node.js. So we're going to go and create an account on Heroku. All of this will be in the presentation that I will share with you later on. So I'm going to put my name quickly, and I'll be using my personal email address. So no company name, role, professional developer. My preferred language is Node.js. So there we go. And I'll create my account. Sorry, user, that email already exists. So I have an account with that email. So I'll just connect on it. I totally forgot that I had made an account with my personal email. Okay, so it says no, enroll. I don't want an extra protection. I don't care. It's my personal account. I use it for playing around. I don't even remember what apps I have on here. So once you create an account, you should basically be on this interface. I have a few projects here, but don't mind them. So then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to start a new app. So we're going to create a new app. We'll put it somewhere. I'll put it in Europe. And what we'll do is that we will call it basically Go Digital Games API. Okay, it's available, everything is fine. We can add a pipeline. So once you go to add a pipeline, you create a new pipeline. And well, that's it. We'll call the pipeline, well, whatever. And we'll create the app. Manage this pipeline, review apps, deployment method, Heroku Git, or GitHub, or whatever. So, okay. So we'll connect it to GitHub. Okay. So we'll push whatever we did right now on GitHub. Atlas, add, commit, server side app development part 3. Today we're the 13th of November, and let's push it on the master. Okay, that's not my GitHub authentication, so let's call it. Okay, and okay, so I need to use my GitHub token. 1 second. One second, please. I just need my personal access token. And delete this one, generate a new token. I don't care. Okay. Generate token. Okay, so git push. There we go. So we push to the master. Now that our GitHub is up to date, we'll connect to GitHub. It says to authorize Heroku. Once Heroku has been authorized, all we need to do is basically go digital Node.js course. We'll connect this one and we'll connect the master branch and we'll enable automatic deploys and we'll deploy the branch right now. So it's deploying. View build log. So as you can see here, it's quite easy. It's like we had done with Netlify, nothing too crazy. And it's done. So it gives us the URL here. It should be the name that you gave to your API. Let's go back to our API. The link should always be, if you go here, you have a button with open app with the link. So if we go here and go to games, it should be fine, right? So now we can actually add this, even this URL. We can come here to our configuration and put it instead of localhost. And there we go. If we refresh, everything is online. We have our database already deployed on the cloud. We have our API deployed on the cloud on Heroku. All we need is our React app to be deployed on Netlify as well. And I think we did that, if I'm not mistaken. If we go to Netlify, we should have it be there already. How did we log in last time? I don't remember. I think believe we logged in with GitHub. Yeah. So React course, sites, and there we go. We had this, which is deployed from our React course on GitHub. We should just deploy this one as well. We should deploy our React as well. Git status. Let's add everything. Add point. Git commit m. Added our API endpoint and services. Node.js course port 3. And we did it the 13th of November 2021. If we push here as well, whoops, git push, here, and well, we'll put this here. It should have deployed, it should have pushed, and if we go to Netlify, we should see it deploying. It should be deploying right now. Production deploys, and you can see it's building right now. So let's wait for Netlify to deploy, and we should have everything well online for our example. We've seen how to deploy on Netlify together on React. I've shown you how to create a cloud database using Mongodb Atlas. and I showed you how to deploy your API with Heroku, which is really easy to do. So we should have everything online, and well, we should no longer need our server to basically access our application, our full stack application. So netlify build and npm run build. It's creating a React build right now. We follow the logs so we know when it's up. Just guys, please stay with me a couple more minutes. It's important because I'm going to give you guys your project. So we may run a bit late, so just give me 10 minutes. So the site is deployed. If we go here and refresh our page, it should give us our new games and it should function. We should be able to delete. We should be able to add the new games. And everything is fine and online. So that's it. What do you guys think? Is it clear? Is everything fine? We just built our first full stack web application with a MongoDB, Express and Node.js, and well, React. This is called the MERN stack application. So this is the MERN stack, and we did, well, we did it all. Open image in a new tab, okay. So this is a MERN stack, and we did it all. We have a full web application and full modern functioning web application. So you guys should be equipped to create your full MERN stack applications now and deploy them. So before we move on, actually, I wanted to show you something for the, actually, we won't have a session next week and the week after that. So we have 2 weeks with no sessions. Why? We'll have coachings. We'll try to have more coaching than usual. So I'll be free next Saturday and Sunday for coaching, and the next one after that. I'll try to coordinate with you guys as well on how you can basically better book your coachings. I'll try to give you an agenda with my availabilities and everything. But why don't we? Of course, because we're going to start, now that we learned how to create a full web app from start to finish, for the next 3 weeks, your guys are going to build by yourselves a full MERN stack project. So what's the objective here? So our objective is going to be simulating you getting a freelance client project. This is not an assignment. This is not the usual assignment. I want you to treat this as a client. You are working your first freelance task, okay? This is a simulation. This is an exercise to get you ready for your first, well, technical freelance job, your development freelance job. So it's going to last 3 weeks. So your deadline is going to be in 3 weeks. We're going to have basically we're going to have a course where we go through everything and your guys' submissions. Basically, I want to see the apps working. I want to see them deployed. Please, you're going to treat me no longer as the guy who teaches you from time to time, but your client. So I need this app deployed, and I need it to be on GitHub, and I need everything. So you have 3 weeks. So what is the app your client wants you to build in this simulation? So your client is the founder and CEO of the company X. Okay, it's a company called X. And this company, they need a web platform for their employees so they can chat online on the web, so they may continue working remotely until the COVID pandemic is done. So right now, the COVID cases are getting a bit up again in Europe and some places in the world. And this company, they want to keep their employees working remotely. Okay, they want to keep them working from home, and they don't want to keep using WhatsApp, Slack, etc. They want their own chat solution. So they need you guys, to use your web development skills, everything you learned so far, to build them a real-time messaging app, kind of a WhatsApp clone. I want you to build their own WhatsApp, and they need the following features. Basically, they want their app to be able to load the list of employees, displaying their names, pictures, and job title. They need, once that list is loaded, to start a conversation with an employee from the list. Basically, you're going to pre-enter this list either through the terminal of MongoDB or put it directly using the GUI. But basically, I want you to input data with their employees. You guys will put it in the database, and that list needs to be displayed on the web with the names, pictures, and job title of every employee. When I click on an employee from the list, I want to be able to start a conversation. So when I open a conversation, I start a conversation, if I talked to that person before, I need to see previously sent messages as well. But otherwise, I need to be able just to chat, send messages, and get messages. Okay? So how do you do that? Basically, for the front end, you're going to use React. For the backend, you're going to use Node.js and Express, which you learned. For the data layer, for the list of employees and the history of messages, etc., you're going to be using MongoDB and Mongoose. And for the real-time communication layer, you're going to use REST APIs for getting and setting everything. And you're going to use WebSockets with Socket.io to build the real-time chat. Other than that, I'm not going to be giving you much additional information. No steps, no screenshot. A client won't give you that, so I will not be giving you that. This is your brief. This is what the client wants. You have 3 weeks to build it. Now, do you have any questions? Please, if you have any questions, ask them now. Well, otherwise you need to start building. So I will be available on Discord and WhatsApp if you have questions later on. Otherwise, I hope it's clear. I hope what we've seen today is clear, and I hope your first full app mission is clear as well. And well, if there is no further questions, we can call it a day and say our goodbyes. Okay, I see no questions in the chat. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's session. I hope there was useful information. I hope everything is clear for you. I hope your time with me was interesting and I hope you learned a lot. So no lecture next week. Otherwise, yeah, you guys can talk to me anytime on either Discord or WhatsApp. I'll be available to still coach you. I mean, no lecture next week, but we'll be having coachings. We'll be having more coachings, actually, since we won't have lectures. It means that I will have more time to basically coach you guys. So even though no lecture, I'm still your coach and teacher, and I'll be coaching you. And yes, Tarek, you can talk to me. Right now, I'm going out. I need to do some things for my job, but otherwise, yeah. I mean, if it's a short question, I mean, we can hop on Discord right now, and if it's short, I can answer you right now. Otherwise, I'll need to get out, go out soon. But yeah, I'll call you on Discord right now. Okay. So thank you guys again. I hope it was interesting. I hope your time with me was interesting. Have a great day. Have fun building this project, and goodbye.